Their growing reputation and burgeoning media profile were even inviting comparisons with another group of rough and raw musicians, Carl Barrett and Pete Doherty's The Libertines. There was some similarity in their attitude and guerrilla approach, but musically and lyrically they were worlds apart in truth. The Arctic Monkeys were more scattergun musically and more kitchen sink lyrically. The group's live shows continued to enthrall and inspire in equal measure, and a riotous celebratory atmosphere prevailed. Tickets sold out all over the country, and the band had to change to a bigger venue for health and safety on several occasions. Even the guys themselves were shocked and overwhelmed by the level of adulation they received. This obsessive worship reached a zenith at a gig in the Sheffield boardwalk, where the crowd sang along to every word, even the songs that hadn't seen the light of day. When the Sun Goes Down was a classic example. Already a pop standard in the making, the fans seemed to be better acquainted with this track than their released songs. At this point, only Fake Tales of San Francisco and From the Ritz to the Rubble had actually been issued. Unfazed by the frenzied attention, Sheffield's finest remained obsessively diligent and immersed themselves in the studio, working on as many new songs as they could muster. They recorded their debut album at Chapel Studios in Lincolnshire through the summer. On the 17th of October, the sizzling single I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor was issued by Domino, and with the assistance of MTV2 and Radio 1 playlists, as well as a mammoth sea of goodwill from their fans and clued-up music lovers, broke records by smashing straight to the top of the singles charts. Backed by the B-sides Bigger Boys and Stolen Sweethearts and Chun-Li's Spinning Bird Kick, this infectious stomp zoomed straight in at number 1, knocking Sugar Babes, Robbie Williams and McFly to one side and shifting an incredible 38,962 copies. This was an astonishing feat for any group, let alone a new young one who'd only been together barely 2 years and was still in their teens. I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor is a prime slice of timeless pop, the sort of tune you hear once and think it's been around for years. It is direct, amusing, forthright, catchy and effortless, evoking a similar spirit to that of Mike Skinner of The Streets. The lads themselves initially thought of deliberately avoiding the chart rundown on the Sunday, in a homage to the classic episode of Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads, in which Bob and Terry tried to catch the highlights of an England match without getting to hear the result. However, they listened in, but Baradell claimed they were unassuming and didn't get carried away with the euphoria for 1 second. The smash hit single is a triumph of infectious melody and lyrical grittiness, rendering the pallid likes of the Kaiser Chiefs and Maximo Park defunct with one stroke of swaggering genius. It is the perfect pop single, danceable beats, a powerful bass line and an irrepressible tune. It instills in you the urge to get up and dance every time you hear its cocksure brilliance. The single is backed by a more introspective song entitled Bigger Boys and Stolen Sweethearts, a tale about losing a girl to someone who possesses a flash car and a Burberry hat. Again, it taps into the travails of everyday life, but wraps it round an addictive terrace anthem chorus and the finest northern lyrics since Jarvis Cocker ruminated on the ecstasy scene. 3 days after hitting the top spot on the British singles charts, they were emblazoned across the front of the NME, and this was when they really realised they'd hit the big time. The tabloids wouldn't leave them alone. Probing for any real-life cheekiness, and casual record buyers were alerted to the new biggest phenomenon in British pop for a long time. Meanwhile, their appearance on the Carling stage at the Reading and Leeds festivals was much hyped by the press, and the NME in particular, who pushed them as the hottest new act in indie guitar music. They were received by an abnormally large audience, considering their place on the bill, and gave a scintillating performance, even inspiring a spontaneous sing-along from the more devoted members of the audience. These included songs only available as demos on the internet. Turner remarked, "It feels like a moment, us playing here." Further confirmation of their widespread appeal arrived when tickets for their first ever show in Japan sold out within 1 hour. And this was before they'd even released a single there. Sell-out dates in Canada, the US and across Europe followed.
We wrote a lot of new stuff that we'd really like to get out, but this album we wanted it to represent like what we'd done. Like, we'd have felt wrong if we didn't. We have left a lot of songs off it, and like it's half and half, but we've put like all I think everyone's favourites on it. Well, not really, but we've picked our favourites, yeah.
The Arctic Monkeys' world became more and more strange and surreal. They would turn up for gigs in Wakefield to be greeted by hardcore fans who'd driven from as far away as Aberdeen. At a Manchester gig, a fan flew over the crowd and his cheek smashed onto the side of the stage. Another fan came over and rolled across, landing perfectly, like a trained gymnast. The word-of-mouth buzz surrounding them had spread in a way the industry couldn't keep up with. Before the Monkeys' mania kicked in, record labels would listen to their songs and express the odd reservation about a particular facet or feature, but the guys never listened to these caveats. Now that the band were at the top of their game and dominating the musical agenda in Britain, they never gave these reservations the slightest thought. The labels who swarmed around them were utterly insignificant. They finished recording their first album, scheduled for December 2005, and began a world tour in October 2005 in Liverpool at the Cavern. Beginning in Britain, it included performances in the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Germany, Canada and the US, and was initially scheduled to finish in Tokyo, Japan on the 23rd of November, but further dates were added in Spain, Sweden and Denmark for December 2005. The British leg of the world tour sold out at every show, and some venues had to be upgraded to deal with the demand. Some tickets with a face value of £7 were resold on eBay for more than £150 a pair. Their home gig in Sheffield had another night added due to floor space being needed for film crews. The Arctic Monkeys spread their wings by making a series of appearances on television, including Pop World on the 15th of October and E4 Music, and later with Jules Holland on the 28th of October. On the 12th of November, their Liverpool gig was featured on MTV2's Gonzo on Tour. The footage was shown a fortnight prior to the rest of the Gonzo on Tour, coinciding with the week that they rocketed to #1. Alex Turner received the accolade of Coolest Man on the Planet by the NME in December 2005. This confirmed the irresistible momentum of the band and offered further evidence that they possessed a genuine pop cultural icon in their lead singer. His gritty vocals and sharp, detailed observations marked him out as the leading frontman of his generation. They displayed further dignity and integrity by announcing that they wouldn't play on any more television shows. They would perform on live shows, but they ruled out any more pre-recorded interviews and such like. Turner regarded the politics of television as an anathema to the musical process, reasoning that you can't do one television show without also appearing on their rivals' shows. Helders explained that the TV interviews they had given were abysmal and against their will. He did posit the eternal conundrum regarding music publicity, namely that the reluctant pop star is looked upon as arrogant and the ubiquitous pop star is quickly seen as a bore. You cannot win. Meanwhile, the Arctic Monkeys embarked upon the NME Awards tour and sold out at the 20,000 capacity London Astoria. There were hysterical scenes at these gigs, with stage-diving diehards and hardcore fans pressed up against venue windows hoping to catch a glimpse of their icons. Although expected to be one of the year's biggest releases with thousands of copies on pre-order, early versions of many of the debut album's tracks were freely available to download from the group's pre-label demo CDs. Domino announced that it would be bringing forward the release date to the 23rd of January 2006 because of the unusually high demand. However, there was speculation that this was a panic move by the label in response to the leak of the album and the impact of file sharing. This was something of a controversial theory, given the pivotal role that file sharing played in establishing the group's incredibly large fan base and breaking them. Anticipation for the album's release was intensely felt throughout the music community. Critics predicted it would have as seismic an impact on the parameters of modern music as the Stone Roses' debut album.
I don't normally get recognised. I mean, there's people outside waiting for stuff signed. I can walk straight in and no one even recognise me. So like, I'm alright. I don't mind in that way either. I don't ever want to get big. No.
In January 2006, Mark Bull announced details of a forthcoming UK tour in April. The tour, commencing on the 13th of April in Nottingham at Rock City, encompassed 12 performances around Britain and culminated on the 27th of April at Brixton Academy. Advance tickets via the website were sold out within 1 hour, and general release tickets were sold out within 10 minutes, with queues at some venues beginning in the middle of the night. Meanwhile, Domino released the group's eagerly anticipated debut album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, for public consumption and smashed records with effortless ease. On the Monday of its release, it shifted an impressive 118,501 copies, which was more than the rest of the top 20 combined. This was an astonishingly high figure for a group being touted as the new Oasis, who'd gate-crashed the national consciousness in the space of just 6 months or so. It also reached number 1 in Australia, 16 in Canada, and 24 in the States. This was the fastest-selling debut rock album in Britain of all time, selling more records in a single day than debuts by such luminaries as Kaiser Chiefs, Franz Ferdinand and Coldplay sold in their first week. It sold 363,735 in the first week of release, smashing the previous record of 306,631 held by Hearsay for their debut Pop Stars, and even sold a respectable 34,000 in its first week of release in the States. This made it the second fastest selling debut indie album ever on Billboard. This groundbreaking record stunned reviewers everywhere with its cunning blend of buzzsaw guitars, chav-baiting sneers and poetic vignettes. It received a heap of critical acclaim from all corners of the globe. It got glowing reviews from such august publications as the NME, The Guardian, The New York Times, The Word, Mojo, Uncut, Entertainment Weekly, Q, The Times and Billboard, who summed it up as a remarkable debut by a band full of energy. The 13 tracks from Riot Van and Mardy Bum through to A Certain Romance and Still Take You Home were instant headline grabbers, oozing confidence, a sense of individual style and an inherent appreciation of melody and songcraft. The editor of the NME, Conor McNicholas, had recently spoken of the demographic for the paper being a bored 17-year-old guy in some dead-end town waiting for something to happen. And in this sense, the Arctic Monkeys crystallised this perfectly. With Whatever People Say, they spoke directly to this constituency, becoming the quintessential NME band. Everybody wanted a piece of this group, from invigorated teens and indie rockers to newspapers and the mainstream news programmes on television. There hadn't been as much blanket coverage of a pop group with guitars since the Oasis and Blur Brit Pop wars were waged in 1995.